One of the hottest topics right now is the viral global pandemic of coronavirus. China and many others are on lockdown. People are not allowed to travel and businesses are closed. But the Chinese coronavirus epidemic has also made life difficult for the Chinese people who live abroad. In Canada, incidents of bullying Chinese students were recorded in schools. In London, bus riders are singling out people of Asian descent and keeping away from them. Even in neighboring Vietnam, the restaurant owner hung a sign saying Chinese are not allowed. The same thing is happening all over the world.
This is an instinctive distancing of people because they are afraid. They don't understand what's going on. What does a random Chinese person in another country have to do with coronavirus in China?
The French classified this problem as yellow alert, trying to distance the local population from the Chinese. There was an incident of a driver screaming from his car at a Vietnamese woman, "Dirty Chinese, you're not welcome in France." The same problem exists in Australia and New Zealand. The problem of fear from being infected with coronavirus by a Chinese person is affecting the entire Asian population that is abroad. How can one distinguish between malady and fear?
You cannot distinguish it. This is a natural response of a little man. He projects it onto others. He naturally associates it with external appearances. What if you have some relatives in China and just got a parcel from them? People are scared. They are afraid. This is deadly. The Chinese government, as a matter of fact, is the one creating such problems. Everything comes from a lack of information. Fear has big eyes.
If there truly is a serious pandemic in the world or any other mortal danger, we can't really count on solidarity.
Of course not. How can people have solidarity? Man eats man. What solidarity?
How can we conquer the epidemic itself?
By isolating ourselves and its epicenter.
This epidemic that is currently spreading, why did it come to us?
It is sent for us to seriously consider the problem of human relations between each other through borders, through all the obstacles, for us to treat everyone the right way. We have not divided into China, Vietnam, India, Israel, America, or Europe. We are all human, and we have to treat each other as living without borders. Because borders are no longer effective. They only hinder our correct interconnection. That is why we can't divide people into nationalities or any other groups. It's impossible.
What is the right interconnection of people who live without borders?
Treat everyone in the kindest way. As family, we must educate everyone this way. Well, China is doing the opposite. We are separate, on a pedestal, high up. Everyone is beneath us.
How can we cure illness with kindness?
There are only two forces in the world, negative and positive. The negative force must be below the positive. We must accomplish this. Then we'll cure all diseases. If not, we'll constantly be fighting more and more viruses.
Illness becomes manifest and actively spreads like a pandemic when an organism's immune system has been compromised.
And what is the immune system?
It is a protective system of an organism that keeps everything in balance.
That's it. We're out of balance. And thus we have this illness. Any illness is a distortion of balance.
What should the Chinese do in regards to other countries and nations? And how should other countries respond to China in this situation?
We have come to such a state of humanity when we, as horrible egoists, are closing ourselves off within our borders and erecting various obstacles from interacting between ourselves. In the end, we have to pay the price. So there's nothing that can be done besides eliminating all borders. But this is impossible without educating the public in the good relations towards each other as a single humanity on the face of this one small, miserable earth. If we do this, everything will be fine. If not, we'll meet with our demise. Does it matter if it comes from contravirus or anything else?
Many analytics say that the given epidemic can be considered a minor rehearsal of a possible deadly virus yet to come that will engulf the world.
Of course, right now we are causing the melting of glaciers with all kinds of bacteria that starts to awaken from its long freeze. They'll be circulating in the air, and we won't know what to do about it, because we have no experience with it, no remedies for something like it.
So all these viruses are here to reduce the population, lower the level?
No, not to reduce. These viruses are here because of our incorrect interaction with surrounding nature. If we interact correctly, nothing will harm us. Nature will remain in balance. There will be no such global warming. Layers of deep freeze will not be melting. There'll be no hurricanes or fires in the deep craters. Meaning we are causing disbalance in nature.
The act of quarantine is not a new concept. It dates back to the 15th century, even the Middle Ages. Interestingly, quarantine used to last 40 days. Quarantine comes from the Italian quarantena, which means 40. Doctors and scientists do not see the medical significance in these 40 days and consider it a biblical concept relating to 40 days in the desert. Thus,
40 days is the gap between Malchut and Bina. Therefore, if we wish to separate egoism from altruism, we have to make this period in time, 40 days.
How should we spend these 40 days in order to heal internally, within the aftermath of external healing?
Very simply, if I wish to renounce my egoism, I have to distance myself from it for 40 days. Then I'm reborn.
What does distancing from egoism mean if we don't even realize how viruses affect us?
We don't have to understand it. The virus itself is egoism. If we abstain from using our inner egoism, we will neutralize all kinds of external viruses.
But how is it possible to abstain from it?
Just for this purpose, like is cured by like, meaning if we want to break free from our egoism and be cured of it, we have to engage in altruistic behavior.
How can we implement this spiritual quarantine to cure people? Is this even possible?
The problem lies in whether the people even want this. Because right now, the government of Eastern and Western Europe, North and South America, are contemplating how to avoid dealing with China altogether. China is an extremely uncomfortable situation.
If we cure the internal sickness, will that be followed by the cure of the external sickness as a consequence? And what is the difference between isolating oneself and others isolating you from themselves?
When others isolate you from themselves, they want nothing to do with you. You're like a leper. This is very bad. It makes you feel disconnected, rejected, and no one will go near you. I hope the Chinese will understand that they have to change their policy. They cannot constantly adhere to such an aggressive policy and keep the world in this type of framework as if it's a sales outlet. Eventually, through their hard work, they made themselves and their whole country into a factory for the production of everything that humanity needs. They really did. But everything that humanity has achieved through its intellectual efforts, the Chinese took no part in it. And therefore, all the thousands of years of mankind's advancement, humanity's intellectual development, the Chinese are lacking it. And nature will not allow it, because the most important thing is the intellectual development of people, while China has everything based on mechanical production. Nature will make them pay for it somehow. Although I have no issue with the Chinese people or their government, I merely speak from a perspective of the laws of nature.
Much of production was brought into China on purpose, to curb the expenses, etc., for many economic reasons. Cheap labor. Today we are surrounded by it. Furniture, clothing, everything. 99% of it comes from China. And now we have no access to it. The borders are closed, and many countries are restricting the import of goods. Who is it hurting the most? China or other countries?
I feel that everyone wanted to profit off cheap Chinese labor and so transferred their intellectual property there. In the end, this is what it led to.
So, who is at fault? Is it those who transferred production there, trying to profit from it?
The human egoism is at fault, and it manifests in each of us, in the laborer and the CEO, in everyone. Egoism is the only thing at fault. What can we do about it? We can only transform it. People don't understand that nature is balanced, that inevitably we must find a balance between the positive and the negative. You can't make it good for yourself only. It is impossible. We must restructure our attitude towards nature, toward life, people, and the world, or we will keep on paying for it with these viruses.
Can you depict the state of the whole humanity, China included, being in balance?
Being in balance means that we have one common China for the whole world. That's all. Common factory altogether, communal. We can't escape it. We have created artificial borders, and we must eliminate them.
And what will happen with viruses?
There will be an equal standard of living in the world, the same attitude towards the world and toward each other. But for that, people have to be educated. A country cannot isolate itself as if to say, we are separate, we are above you. We bring everyone to their knees due to their dependence on our goods. This can no longer go on. This era has come to an end. This is not just a trade war between China and America. The whole world is beginning to understand what this egoistic attitude brings to us and its huge impact on the world in its primitive form, and that it does not work to anyone's advantage.
Will the 40 days of quarantine help China and humanity to cure themselves of this internal virus?
40 days of spiritual quarantine will definitely help. However, 40 calendar days of quarantine won't affect anything, I'm sure.
Spiritual quarantine. What must be done every day, every moment, to gradually heal ourselves? In a few steps.
Educating people. Educating people. If China would suddenly begin to adapt itself internally to the right interconnections with other people, with humanity, with nature, then we could hope for some changes.
You have students in China. What do you wish for them, and how should they be interconnected?
To understand the nature of the problem, of what is actually going on, what kind of virus this is, not biological but spiritual. How can we correct it and channel it the right way towards the right interconnection with the world? The truth is that this is an appeal to China to become part of the family of nations in the right way, even on the egotistical level, to stop subjugating the whole of humanity. This is what the virus is teaching us, not to conquer the world, but to be in a mutual, adequate interconnection.
What will serve as medicine for this virus? What will help us act correctly, as you say, in balance?
The realization that our world is integral, there cannot be areas of prosperity and others of misery. This virus is the price we pay for the egotistic attitude towards the whole of humanity.